We tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death, unknown. Hi, I am Jaclyn Steele, and welcome to Self-Discovery. Howard Thurman so beautifully wrote, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Coming alive. That, my friends, is what self-discovery is all about.
Who is it? Who is it? You wear that mask for.
Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I'm so glad that you're spending some time with me. Oh, I'm so honored, truly. Every time I sit down to record this podcast, and right now it's Monday morning, 2 days before the podcast is to air, I'm sitting with my cup of coffee and my dog on my lap and a candle burning, just feeling such a deep sense of gratitude for you, my listeners. And today I want to chat about fear, because fear has been a topic of so many of my conversations. Before I dive into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, I do want to do a couple business things. One is, please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and leave me a review. I read every single review. Sometimes I read them on air. Oh, they mean the world to me. And getting feedback from you guys is just so helpful in the creation of this podcast too. So I, again, just appreciate every single review so much. And it helps us be seen and heard by a wider array of people. And the message and heart of this podcast is to empower and lift people up. And I think we really need that right now. So please leave a review. It makes a big difference. And then also, I've been talking over the last couple of months about my Sacred Rebel affirmation texts. And that is a service that I'm doing that's completely free right now. All you have to do is text me at 480-531-6858. And then type in the word sacred and you will be added to my list. And what I do is a couple times a week, so I will not be spamming you in any way, I just send something that I believe to be inspirational or thought-provoking, going against the status quo to make you think, or something to just really empower your day. And the last message that I sent out, I'm just going to read it to you guys so that you have an idea of kind of what is happening and what I'm sending. So this was the text. It said, "So often we pretend we've made a decision when what we've really done is signed up to try until it gets too uncomfortable." That's from Jen Sincero. And then I added, "Discomfort is a marker of growth. It means you are expanding. Let it be uncomfortable. See what you are really capable of. You got this." So if you're interested in these types of text messages, please, again, text me at 480-531-6858 and then type in the word sacred and you will automatically be added to the list. All right. Fear. Fear has been a topic of so many of my conversations lately, and I think it deserves repeating. What I opened this podcast episode up with was a quote, and unfortunately the quote is unknown, but it's so profound. "We tiptoe through life hoping to make it safely to death." And this fear, there's a collective fear, there's individual fear, there's family fear, there's friendship fears. It's in our homes, it's in our heads. It's pretty much everywhere we look right now. And it's really not surprising why. I get it. The tragedy of our military exit from Afghanistan, Hurricane Ida in Louisiana, the floods in New York City, the earthquake in Haiti, an international pandemic that is still happening, mandates, and then non-mandates about the COVID vaccine, global warming, pretty much everything mainstream media airs. You get the idea. It's just fear, 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 fear. But I'm not here today to induce more fear in your head and heart. I actually want to do the opposite. And I want to ask not only you, but me too, is fear totally effing up our lives? Because what we need right now, individually and collectively, is not more fear, but faith. And I'm not talking about just philosophical faith, though I think that is hugely important and is part of my daily practice. I'm talking about real life, tangible change, the way you think and operate faith. Let's get into it here. Have you ever made a good decision out of fear? Have you ever had a good day while operating out of fear? Has fear ever contributed positively to your mental health? Now, let's dive even further in. How many of your greatest fears have actually been realized? How many of your smallest fears have come to fruition? What about those late night 3 a.m. wake-up call fears? Have they been worth your loss of sleep or your energy loss due to anxiety? Are we even aware that fear is in the driver's seat of our life? I want to get macro and micro on fear right now. The very definition of fear is this: an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. In the very definition of fear, it references the belief that someone or something is dangerous. And thereby, this begs us to ask, if fear is a belief, then is fear also a choice? Yes, fear is a choice. Are some of the global issues I referenced earlier real and awful and fear-inducing? Yes. Do we need to do something about them? Yes. Do we need to let fear rule our lives and dictate our decisions and the way we walk in the world? No. A resounding no. Because if we allow fear to rule our lives, we will not be operating at full capacity. Fear is such a giant topic, and one that I'm sure I'll return to in this podcast and elsewhere because I'm becoming so acutely aware of the need for it. But today I felt compelled to speak about fear because it seems to be on the rise at such a rapid pace. And I want to talk about a few things that over my life have been really pivotal in helping me not to live in fear. That is not to say, my beautiful listeners, that I don't have days where I experience fear or moments where I spiral into fear. I do. However, these tactics that I'm about to share with you have been extremely effective when I am aware I am in a fearful moment to take me out of that fearful moment and put me back into a state of power and personal power. So the first thing that I think is super important is to bring it back to the facts. Okay? This is a very simple exercise. When you feel yourself falling into fear, take a deep breath and get really logical with it. So let's take this pandemic for instance. Is it real? Yes. Is it deadly? In some cases, yes. But still, if we peel back the curtain, we will find that death rates are still around 0.01 and 0.02%. That's still too high. I don't want anyone dying. And I'm obviously not a health expert, but what I did was I went online to the New York Times counter to both Arizona and Georgia and divided the number of deaths by the number of positive COVID cases. And those were the percentages. And you can do that for your state, but on average, it's hovering between, from what I understand, 0.01 and 0.03% on the high end. So that's not a high percentage of death. And again, I'm not a health expert, but of those that are dying, I think over 90% have over 4 comorbidities that are accompanying that. Now, I don't mean to sound callous in any way, because one death is too many deaths. But for those of us that are terrified of COVID and terrified of continuing to work and go out in the world, I encourage you to exercise caution and to be safe and do what you need to do to protect yourself. However, the chances of you passing away are very, 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 very slim. And part of the problem that I feel like is happening in our country right now is accurate, non-politically fueled information. It's so hard to come by. So people turn to mainstream media and they get their feedback loops online from their friend groups. And it's understandable and it's human. We don't have hours and hours of free time to try and find the facts. However, if we bring it back to the data from the New York Times, again, regarding positive COVID cases and death rates, our chances of dying from COVID are minute and even smaller if we do not have any comorbidities.
So you probably already know this, but most of us are not breathing properly. That is why breath work is having such a moment in the wellness space right now, and hopefully a very long, like forever moment. Because not breathing properly messes up our very biology. Shallow breathing can lead to heightened cortisol, sweating, increased heart rate, among other health issues. It can also increase our anxiety and lead to panic attacks. Deep breathing, on the other hand, prompts a calming response to the brain, helps to release toxins from the lungs, loosen our glorious muscles, and decrease our blood pressure. What if you could ease anxiety and breathe deeper without any kind of medications? What if you could do this with a simple product that was inspired by ancient wisdom, has scientifically proven results, is endorsed by psychiatrists, and designed by a therapist? I am so excited to introduce you to the Shift by Camuso design. I'm wearing it right now as I'm recording this, and it is a beautiful and simple necklace with an apparatus that you breathe through. And this little necklace helps you to control your breath so you can decrease your stress hormone cortisol, slow down your heartbeat, decrease blood pressure, loosen your muscles, and come back into the present moment. The Shift was inspired by Camuso monks of 17th century Japan. They used a bamboo shakuhachi flute as a healing modality and a method of attaining enlightenment. I love this. The Shift also provides stress relief backed by science. You can just visit their website to see all of the amazing results that they have created. It's so simple to use. You take a deep breath and you exhale through the Shift. You relax, and then you repeat 5 more times. My husband and I both have a Shift necklace, and we love them. I have the gold version. It's so gorgeous, and it goes perfectly with all my other layered necklaces. And my husband has the charcoal version, which is masculine and minimalistic. I love the weight of it. I love the way it feels around my neck. And I also love knowing that at a moment's notice, if I'm feeling a bit of stress, I can stop and breathe through this and come back into the present. It is something that I wear almost every single day, and I think it's something that you will absolutely love too. Check out this stress transforming necklace at Camuso Design. That's KOMUSODESIGN.com and use code Jaclyn, Jaclyn, for 15% off your Shift necklace. Now back to the show.
I don't want to go too deep into this rabbit hole of the media and fear-mongering, because I think that's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down, and I'm not sure that will uplift anybody. But I will say that I have seen so many stories and people directly sharing their story online. Let me just give you an example. somebody sharing their story and it going viral, and then the media taking that story and leaving out huge chunks of information that by the time you end reading that story that was circulated by mainstream media, you feel such a giant sense of fear when the original post or the original story that was shared was actually really hope-inducing. And so I bring that up to say we can't believe everything that's being fed to us, because in so many ways it's been morphed and edited to fit a specific agenda. So if during this time of incredible fear and stimulation, you need to take a break from the media and from the news, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You have full permission. I have full permission. We all have full permission. And yeah, I don't want to go too much more into mainstream media and my thoughts on that right now. I just think there's a lot of propaganda going around, and it's dangerous and it's a slippery slope. And again, I understand that the facts are hard to come by when it comes to COVID, and I'm so frustrated by that. But when we get down to it, again, the death rates are what they are, and they're low and often accompanied by multiple comorbidities. So when I'm in a state of fear, bringing it back to the facts like this always helps me. And it's something my dad taught me to do when I was young. He would say, well, what do you think the chances of that are happening? If I was afraid of doing something, that's what he would say. And I remember specifically being at a Mexican restaurant in my hometown of Dubuque, Iowa, and the sirens went off for a tornado warning in our town. We had tornado warnings pretty much every year, and this one was supposed to be particularly bad. And I looked at my dad with fear in my eyes, and I said, oh my gosh, Dad, should we get home? Like, what should we do? The storm's supposed to hit in an hour or so. And he looked at me and he said, here's the thing. We can only do what we can do. And the chances of the tornado hitting our house are slim to none, but we're going to finish our dinner in peace, and we're going to go home, and we're going to go into the basement to be safe. And then we are going to continue living our lives. And that sense of calm and control in a situation where chaos could reign made such a difference in my little girl psyche because it really taught me in that moment that fear is a choice. I don't have to be freaking out, even if a situation, there is a cause or even understanding for why you would be freaking out. We don't have to, and we don't have to allow our nervous systems to go to that space. Another story that I want to talk about when it comes to the facts and my dad are in 2005. I had just graduated from high school, and I told my parents I don't want gifts. I don't want a graduation party. I want to go to Europe. And so I saved my money, and they helped me fund a trip with my friend Lauren to go to London, Paris, and Dublin. And a week before we were supposed to leave, there was a bombing in London in the tube station, and a bombing of a bus. And the people that knew we were going on this trip were so freaked out and just putting so much fear on us. Like, are you still going to Europe? How could you go to London right now? Etc. You get the idea. And I spoke with my dad, and he said, I want you to be safe. And we don't want to make any kinds of decisions that are silly. However, logically, London is safer right now than it was a week ago. There's more patrol, there's more surveillance, there are more people on the ground. And so if you feel comfortable going, then I want to leave that decision up to you. And I ended up going, and it ended up being an amazing trip. Yes, there was sadness about the loss of life, but also being there and experiencing that is also such an incredible experience because it's so sobering and you realize how precious life is. And sometimes we need to face those situations and see them head on and understand that life is incredibly precious and the loss of life is so hard, but it also gives us an appreciation for the present moment and living and breathing and continuing on. So again, we don't want to be silly. We don't want to be putting ourselves unnecessarily in harm's way. However, experiencing the full breadth of life and all of life's experiences is one of the reasons we're here. And so shying away from everything and tiptoeing our way to death, never really having lived, I don't know about you, but excuse me, it's the early morning. I am just a little stuffed up, but I don't know about you. I don't want to live like that. Okay. So bring it back to the facts. That's my first piece of advice and something that has really helped me. My second piece of advice, and again, something that I have really practiced, is practice presence and pay attention to your reality. I'm going to say that one more time. Practice presence and pay attention to your reality. I love this one, and it's so important. When the media, when your family, when people on the internet are falling back on fear and spreading the message of it, try tuning into presence. Practically speaking, this means that when you start to feel the adrenaline rush and the cortisol spike of fear, instead of allowing the fear spiral to start, you stop, you take a breath or two or three or however many you need, and then you look around. Is your reality crashing down around you? Do you have food in your fridge? Do you have clothing on your body? Do you have a safe and warm bed to sleep in? Are your primary needs being met? If so, you can go even further. What is life like around you? How are your friends and loved ones doing? Is the sun out? Do you have music playing? Is your favorite candle burning? Life can be hard, and I don't want to deny that, but life can also be incredibly beautiful, especially when we are soaking it in with our full presence. Though the world can often sound like it's about to crash around us, we can still choose joy over fear every single day, especially if we know tomorrow is not promised. Wouldn't it be better to focus our energy on enjoying the time that we have right now? What good is allowing fear to rule your day going to do for you, or your loved ones, or your friends, anyone, collectively? In my experience, and my husband and I have been cautious and careful during this pandemic, but we've also continued to live our lives. You know, we bought an RV, we sold our home, we sold most of our belongings, and we started traveling across the country. We bring our masks with us, we have hand sanitizer, we eat nutritious foods, and we take supplements to boost our immune system, we move our bodies, and we are continuing to live while taking in the latest information to keep us and the people we love safe. So we've had to pivot. Unfortunately, we were supposed to take a couple of trips over the next month and a half. And we've had to cancel both of those due to the Delta variant. But at the same time, our intention was to continue living. And then, as the facts roll in and people tell us what's going on the ground, we make educated decisions, but not out of fear, out of the facts. Continuing on, many of our friends and loved ones have had COVID, both as unvaccinated and vaccinated people. And thankfully, they've recovered. We almost lost my aunt, but she had some other health issues that were actually more severe than COVID and has now, thankfully, recovered. Again, when I choose not to operate out of fear and I am present, logic sets in. I have everything I need in this moment. And how freaking beautiful is that? Life is confusing, guys. And I get that. And I think in our human brains, so often we feel like we need to be one thing or another. So we need to be fearful or we need to be joyful. We need to be sad or we need to be happy. But I am here to say you can hold space for both. When my aunt was in the ICU and our family was praying and sending messages and preparing for the worst, there was such a deep sadness there. And there was a joy over the celebration of her life. So those feelings can coexist. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And by no means, guys, am I downplaying the massive loss of life in this nation and beyond. It is gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching. What I am seeing here is, though, that we do not have to live in fear every day and let fear rule our lives. Again, if you bring it back to the facts, our chances of death are low. I encourage caution, but I also encourage us to continue living, tuning into our presence and enjoying what we have right now in this moment. We can pray for the state of the world and take action and try and change it and enjoy ourselves in the process. Nowhere in the rule book of life does it say that in order to solve big problems, you have to sacrifice your joy. I'm reminded again of the quote I shared at the beginning of this episode. We tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. Let's not tiptoe, friends, because we were made for so much more than that. Today's episode of Self-Discovery with Jaclyn Steele is supported by Ritual. Ritual creates, in my opinion, the best vitamins on the planet. They're traceable, meaning every ingredient is transparently traceable to where it was grown and harvested. They're non-GMO, third-party tested, vegan, and they contain no artificial flavors or synthetic fillers. So guys, did you know that a lot of over-the-counter vitamins have fillers and synthetic dyes, like dyes that make your urine yellow so you think the vitamin is actually working? When I found this out, I literally wanted to vom. Anyway, back to the awesomeness of Ritual that doesn't do that to you. They have multivitamins for women, including prenatal and postnatal, multivitamins for men, and a multi for children. Every ad in this podcast is hand-chosen by me. Every single one. I reach out to these companies personally based on my experience with their products. With Ritual, that is the absolute truth as well. I have been taking their vitamins for about 3 years. And prior to finding Ritual, I tried many multivitamins, all of which, and I don't know, those of you can relate to me here, but I know there are some of you, but all of which made me nauseous and sometimes vomit, especially if I didn't take them with food. Ritual is literally, guys, the only vitamin I have ever been able to take on an empty stomach and then not vomited afterwards. I have no nausea, no ill symptoms whatsoever, even after taking it on an empty stomach. In addition, I can speak to their efficacy. Since being diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I've had numerous blood tests, and normally people in my position have low vitamin B12, and my blood tests have shown that my B12 levels are healthy. Yay! My husband also takes the men's multi. We have been so happy with Ritual, especially since the emergence of COVID. Our health is a priority and such an immense gift all the time, but especially during this time. For 10% off your first 3 months, go to ritual.com or click the link below and use code Jaclyn Steele. Again, 10% off your first 3 months. Go to ritual.com and use the code Jaclyn Steele, all one word, and have your amazing Ritual vitamins delivered right to your door. All the details and links are in the show notes below. I want to read you now a passage from a book called You Are a Badass. And this passage I thought was so powerful because it is an illustration of how fear is absolutely a choice in our lives. And it's not something that we have to abide by. So this is from Jen Sincero. And she said, fear is for suckers. When I lived in New Mexico, a friend of mine took me to this cave she'd heard about up in the Jemez Mountains. It's more like a big hole in the ground, actually, she said, but I hear it's pretty cool. She didn't do a great job of selling it, especially when she got to the part about how we'd have to crawl around on all fours the whole time. But I wasn't really listening to her anyway. Caves don't interest me, no matter what size they are. I was only going for the road trip and the hike through the mountains and this great burger place that I discovered the last time I was up there. The cave was just a necessary part of the trip, like stopping for gas. After a glorious drive beneath the endless New Mexico sky and a beautiful hike on a red dirt path through a pinyon pine forest, we got to the cave. It was just as she'd described, a little hole at the base of a small hill just big enough to crawl through. My friend tossed me a pair of knee pads and a flashlight and headed in. I followed her on my hands and knees, holding my flashlight with my teeth, and by the time we were about 10 minutes in, I felt like the entrance and my chances of ever seeing another burger again had vanished. If anything came at us from inside the cave, like, say, a monster, or if there was a flash flood or an earthquake or a rattlesnake or a mosquito, we were totally screwed. The craggy white rock tunnel surrounding us had closed in so tightly that when my friend finally stopped crawling and leaned against the wall to sit, she had to do so with her head bent so far forward, it looked like she was about to start chewing on her neck. What the hell was I doing in here? Okay. Now for the cool part. You ready? She asked. Turn off your light. She clicked off her flashlight after motioning for me to do the same. The instant my light went out, I experienced the absolute darkness of beyond pitch black, holy effing SHIT, deepest, darkest blackness ever. I felt the tickling of hysteria begin to worm its way up the back of my neck, and for the first time in my life, I completely understood fear. Because fear was the only thing I could see in that hole. It sat there, omnipresent, gigantic, all-consuming, staring me straight in the face, asking, "So you gonna let me swallow you up, or what?" I realized that, with absolutely zero effort, I could unravel into a claustrophobic freak out of such scratching, biting, high-pitched, crazy lady screaming colossalness that it would both leave me and my friends staring at a wall, playing with our lips for weeks after they dragged our limp and bloodied bodies out of that cave. Or not. The choice was mine. To fear or not to fear? That is the question. I'm pleased to report that I decided to forego the fear frenzy in favor of calmly crawling back out of the cave to the land of sunshine, open spaces, and walking on two legs. I emerged with not only an alarming amount of sand in my ears and severe lockjaw from cracking the flashlight with my teeth, but with a new and profound understanding of the choice aspect of fear. It's so simple. Fear will always be there, poised and ready to wreak havoc, but we can choose whether we're going to engage with it or turn on the lights, drown it out, and crawl past it. I also realized that drowning it out is actually pretty easy. We've just been conditioned to believe otherwise. We've made being in fear a habit. And friends, we have made being in fear a habit. So, the third thing that I have found that has really, really made a difference in my life when it comes to fear is this. Control what you can actually control and let the rest go. This concept is pretty simple and it's rooted in Stoic philosophy. We cannot control anything other than our thoughts, words, and actions. That's it. So why get upset or allow fear to take hold over something that you cannot control and never can control? You fretting over it, me fretting over it, is only going to cause us discomfort. Think about it this way. That thing you woke up fretting over 3 weeks ago, do you remember it? Did it happen? Chances are A, that you don't even remember it, and B, it didn't happen. Fear keeps us small and focused on things that very often we cannot control. There is another way. We don't have to live like this, my friends. I love the singer-songwriter Patty Griffin, and she has a song called Time Will Do the Talking, and in it, she says this: time will do the talking, years will do the walking. I'll just find a comfy spot and I'll wait it out. And I love that quote also when I'm in fear or sadness or whatever, because we realize that this too shall pass. Now, before you think I'm suggesting that we all become pacifists, here is my next tip. This is number 4. Take action on what you can take action on. If you can do something to make your reality better, do it. If you can do something to make someone else's reality better, do it. If you can do something to make the world a better place, do it. But fretting over it and not taking action is pointless. If you are fretting daily over something and not taking any action, you will continue to fret over it daily and not make any progress. Donate money to a charity. Start a clothing or a food drive. Go to the gym and work on those 10 pounds you want to lose. Eat well and take vitamins to supercharge your immune system. Make a plan to leave your job and get all detaily about your finances and what you need to save in order to make that happen. Then set a date for when you are quitting or transitioning to your new job. Make a move. Find an apartment in a city you've always wanted to live in. Put down a deposit. Plan the trip you've always wanted to take and set a date. And if travel regulations allow, buy the flight. Friends, you get the idea. Take action. We have a lot of power. Each and every one of us. So use it. Live your dream life, whatever that may be. It may require some work and sweat equity, but you can do it. Many people before you have, and many people will after. If we let fear be our motivating factor, we will repeatedly fall short of what we are capable of. I'm going to say that one more time because it's so important. If we let fear be our motivating factor, we will repeatedly fall short of what we are capable of. I'm going to wrap up with this. This is number 5. Edit what you allow in your life. You're the gatekeeper, friends. Are the people you hang with regularly sharing information with you that instills fear? Or do they tell you what you are doing is going to cause something catastrophic? Like after you tell them you want to book a trip to Hawaii, they tell you should really rethink that because flights to Hawaii are expensive and your retirement plan is more important. Or when you tell them that you want to leave your job, they tell you how stupid that is because you'll lose benefits and health insurance, even though there are so many ways right now to save for retirement and have health insurance. You choose who you give the mic to, and you can choose who you take the mic away from. You can amplify their sound, or you can turn it down to 0. In addition, are the TV shows you watch regularly instilling fear? Like crime shows that have you scared to walk from your car to your front door, even in the daylight? What about podcasts? Are you listening to podcasts that make your beautiful life sound like it is going to be snatched from you like a tablecloth under a lovely tablescape at any moment, so you have to be on the lookout always? What about the news? How do you feel after you watch it? Better? Worse? You control the remote. Friends, you are the king of your kingdom, the master of your domain. You can choose what you let in and what you kick the F out. Fear is incredibly powerful, and it's contagious. I get it. Biologically, we are hardwired with it so that we can escape from life-threatening situations, and that's a good thing. However, our biology has not caught up with the technology that we have in our world yet. Our nervous systems are not wired to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, or to hold space for everything happening in the world all at once. Here's the truth, the ground level truth. I've never made a wise decision out of fear. I've never been happy when I'm living in a state of fear. I've never been grateful that I was fearful. So, to recap all of the things that so simply help me come back into the present moment and not spiral into fear, bring it back to the facts. Practice presence and pay attention to your reality. Control what you can actually control and let the rest go. Take action on what you can take action on and edit what you allow in your life. I'm going to share a few quotes with you that I think are really powerful. This first one is from Edmund Burke. He said, "No power so effectually robs the mind of all its powers of acting and reasoning as fear." Herman Melville said, "Ignorance is the parent of fear." And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world." Friend, beautiful listeners, your fear does not need to defeat you.